Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mom Series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity, where I am getting some stitches on my 16-inch circular for a sample. So I'm going to talk about the pattern a little bit and then tell you something really wild that just happened, which is really cool. I wasn't going to talk about multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder or DID or the brain or anything, but I want to show you really quick what happened. I started to talk about this is video 12 that I've deleted. I started to talk about how I had read Sally Field's book last year online. Her book is called In Pieces. Why this book is important, I think, to the multiple community and the DID community is Sally Field was horribly abused when she was a child. Okay? She went through a lot of, alongside awesome, wonderful memories. Her stepfather was molesting her. Now, her mom divorced when somewhere around 2 or 3 years old. I think 3. By the time she was 4, her mom married a stuntman. They were in the industry. The mom was in entertainment. Very close. Her biggest fan and supporter was her mom, and just this idyllic, beautiful childhood. That said, her mom married a man who was very well known in Hollywood, stuntman, popular stuntman, handsome, and they were together for quite a few years. So from the time Sally Field was 4, from the very first meeting, she said, and it's really important if you read this book, go look at all of her interviews because she really talks more. You'll catch more of what she's saying in the interviews than in the book. But she alludes to it and brings you down the path in the book. So I have been reading it online several times and making notes because I thought it was very interesting that her book is called In Pieces. And her front cover is a picture of her when she was young. And her back cover is a picture of her at the age of, I think she was 70 there, or between 65 and 70. She's 72 now, I think. So what she said is she had all these journals she had kept all of her life, and she never felt like she belonged here on the earth. She always felt like she felt, I'm going to do this while I talk. She never felt like like the other people, like the other kids, like she couldn't quite put a finger on it. She just didn't feel right. She didn't feel right in her skin. She didn't feel right. And so she also talks about, for a while, that acting came so natural to her that in talking to doctors, she wondered if she was on the autistic spectrum because many people that are on the autistic spectrum do something that's called masking, where they don't really know how to fit in. They blend. They start picking up on everybody else's behavior and they imitate to a great degree, like to an almost perfect pitch of sound of voice, of mannerism. I guess you could think, and that they get pervasive thoughts and intrusive, sometimes pervasive, where they're like kind of stuck on buffer. That thought is not going to go away, or repetitive. So she knew she had these characteristics in her personality. She knew she was doing these things, but she didn't have a name for it. Probably that all into acting because they were in the industry. Meanwhile, her stepfather, she says, from the first time she met him, she realized, like from a 4-year-old, like he was all encompassing and made her feel so special and so wrong right away. Like he was all that and too much. he was all about her. And she loved the attention, and it made her feel powerful. But then she talks about how the grooming was so insidious, how he encouraged her to be free, and it was the 40s, 50s, 60s, to drink, to dance, to try music, and he would watch her, and she would like kind of parade around the house, naked, and she knew it pleased him. Like there was this unspoken, um, I know my stepfather will be happy if I do this. And so she did. And eventually he started inviting her into his room when her mother wasn't there. And by the age of, while she was still a teenager, let's say, he drove her to Mexico to have an abortion. And what she says is, she felt like when her mother was dying, her mother died on her 65th birthday, and her mother and her were so close, and they had said all the words, they had all the conversations, and the mother did believe her, and before all that, the mom and him, and she divorced him, or they just divorced. But a lot of people have said, "Did you wait for everyone to be dead to talk about them?" And she's adamant, no, she didn't, because there are also people in Hollywood that she mentions that her recollection is what she had to do to get a part was either show parts of her body or kiss someone or whatever, and just that kind of like that Me Too book out there, like what they had to do to get a part. But that she really had to fight to get rid of that flying nun kind of part that she played. She really loved Gidget, and Gidget is still with her. And she loved Norma Jean. And I talked about this in other videos, how actors will pick up a character trait and put that into their personality. That's in the character development, right? And when her mom died, she wasn't sure. She just kind of like felt she was in pieces, like she was all over the place. And that her life had been all over the place. And she started going back and looking through journals and things that she had read or written, and things that people had written to her, like her own dad had written her lots of letters that she never opened. And the reason she didn't, and even her stepdad had written her letters, and the reason she didn't open them, she didn't want to deal with what she already knew. So she always knew she was abused. She didn't go to therapy to find out she was abused. She always knew she was abused. She always knew these things happened to her, and instead she gravitated towards roles in her life, like Sybil, like Norma Jean. She fought for roles like to shed that flying nun type thing. She held on to aspects of those characters, like Gidget, like the fighter in Norma Jean, like all of it. So she really stepped into their shoes. She really fought for Lincoln, for Mary, or Molly, or what Lincoln called her. She really fought for that role. But in all of her trying to understand what was going on with her emotionally when her mother died, she went to Dr. Dan Siegel. Now, Dr. Dan Siegel is pretty popular in neurobiology and neuropsychology, brainy doctor, who looks at every human experience and a lot of parenting and communication and family dynamic, just everything, from the upstairs, downstairs of the brain. I've often talked about when I think of my brain, and how I run, how I know my brain runs. I am constantly shuffling things around like everyone does when they multitask. I have several things running around their head at once. I think of my eyes as the front burner on my stove, front two burners. I think of my ears as the back burners. And I think of this whole head as the oven. So I can be like, okay, I'm stirring this and I'm taking care of this and it's up here on this burner. But now it's okay, I'm going to set it in the back burner and turn it down, but I got to do this over here. I'm running around the stove. So anybody that's ever cooked, you know what I'm talking about. That's how experience is. And sometimes they get placed in the oven and put away for a little while. Because why? Because you either got them on warm or they're baking or roasting or cooking or boiling or whatever. But you don't have to tend to them because they're in the oven, right? So that's how I know my head works. I've known that from a young girl. I can almost physically feel myself run something around my head and then put it to rest for a little while in the oven. So Dr. Dan Siegel explained to Sally Field, excuse me. I don't know where that came from. That she was in many pieces, and that everyone was. But that in therapy, it would help if she would. Oh, and here's the other thing: she had put things out of her mind in like a dissociative fugue, not disassociating so much, but she did. But then, like a fugue state, she also experienced derealization, depersonalization. So had full-on post-traumatic stress, derealization, depersonalization, all of it, and continued to excel as an actor. Really going towards the roles that spoke to her. So something about Sybil really spoke to her being in pieces because she felt like her life was scattered all over the place. And she was a daughter. She was a lover to her stepfather. She was like a mistress. She was arm candy for Burt Reynolds at times. She was cute but not sexy. She had all these things in her head that she was. And Dr. Dan Siegel explained to her the upstairs brain, the downstairs brain, or like he describes it, like a hand. This part of your brain, that part of your brain. But he also explained that in their work together, if she could name the pieces of herself, like not just give characteristics, although that came later, but if she could name, she never says she has multiple personality or dissociative identity disorder. She does say dissociative features. She does say ego states. She goes to great pains to not say DID. But what Dr. Dan Siegel does is he encourages her to name the pieces, like the child Sally, the Sally that fought for the role for Mary Todd Lincoln, the Sally that felt pulled towards the role of Sybil Dorset, right? The Sally that cared for her mom when she was dying. That can go to all the different pieces of Sally Field, which there were many, and name them and start talking to them and living with them and doing life with them. And in her interview, she says, I got one named Aaron. Just comes out. She says, and I think it's really important that we don't dismiss what she's saying, because that is exactly what happens in therapy, which lately I've been putting a big R on. It's helpful. She talks about integration and becoming whole and bringing all of her pieces together. She talks about everything you would hear in DID, MPD, multiple community, dissociative identity disorder, integration. She talks about it all, but she doesn't use those terms. She just uses a different name for it. Here's the book. Because Dr. Dan Siegel uses a different name for it. So I was going to talk about this book today. I did 11 videos. I deleted all of them. I didn't have the book with me. I thought, I read it. I've taken a million notes. But now that I've watched all the interviews with it, I've written down the notes that go with that part of the book. But I wanted to have it. Look what just came in the mail. Got a knock on the door. This book was not supposed to be here until the 29th or April 4th. And I got it with my Amazon reward card, and I had points, so it cost me nothing. I already paid for it on Audible, so it cost me nothing, right? It says it was in good shape. It really is. There's a faint smell of, there's a faint cigarette smell in it. A very faint. Very faint. I wouldn't have been able to smell that a couple of years ago because I was still smoking, but now I'm kind of just a faint smell. But look at the condition it's in. Beautiful. Every movie, and the actors and the producers, she names names. And people come out and say, that didn't happen. So, it's allegations. The price of the book was $29 in the US, $18 in Canada. I went under used and picked one for $5.95. And with the points I had, it came to 0. So, there's a lot of talk in her interviews about this picture, the front cover, and why she chose it. And in pieces, and then she's together at the end, older, right? And then, so I am going to do another video on this once I make all my little notes. So that came today. So I'm going to talk about it because Dr. Dan Siegel, she talks about him like he's God. In her interview, she mentions that Dr. Dan said, well, Dr. Dan told me, well, Dr. Dan. And I think it goes to the weight of how when people say MPD DID can be suggested or made as a way of learning about ourselves, that's what they mean. The doctor isn't coming up to you and saying, hey, I'm at an altar and I think, oh, you have an altar. No, you named your own altar. I remember reading about Jeanette Bartha, who went to the doctor for depression and anxiety, and she came out with multiple personality, addicted to medications, thinking her whole family had abused her. Just incredible amount of drugging that went on with her. She thought her kids were abused. She thought she was abused. And when her doctor went on vacation, and she wasn't on her medication and constantly with that doctor, she started weaning off her medication and exercising, and she got clarity in her head. She said, wait a minute, there's no way that could have happened because the person I'm accusing that began all this wasn't even in town that year. He was across the way, whatever, and never was. I mean, she started picking it apart, peeling the onion the other way, and said, well, she had a false memory. Now, people have said, well, why did Jeanette Bartha go in and say, hi, my name is Danny. Why did she do that? 'Cause that's what the doctor was like, well, she introduced herself as Danny. Well, why did the doctor who was looking for DID say, who am I talking to today? When he was first meeting her. She felt it was a weird question. Like, he was looking for others. And anybody that's ever been in therapy, I don't care what you say, anybody that's ever been in therapy, I care what you say, but let's be honest, when we're in therapy, we are looking to please who we think is the authority and has the answers, right? So that's what I'm saying. Sally went into therapy with Dr. Dan Siegel saying, I feel like I'm all in pieces, and this happened to me when I was younger. And I had resolve with my mom, but not complete, like there's something still not right. Well, you have all these pieces. We have to put them together. But we can't put them together until you name them all, so you can talk to them and we can talk in the office. Okay, what am I going to say? All right, so this pattern, the Garden State Beret, calls for a cast on of 80 stitches. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60. I got too many. 52, 54, 56, 58, 70, 72, 74, 76, 78, 80. Okay, I'm taking these off. What's important is that you have an even number multiple of 10. Right? And I was going to do a smaller size. I'm actually going to take some of these off. That's 80. Well, I guess I could do a larger version. It's okay. So, it's okay. It's all right. So, do whatever cast on you want to do. And the cast on I've been doing is a version of a long tail, which is an old world German cast on. And again, I'll just show it to you. Just estimate a little bit more yarn than you would for a long tail. Just a smidgen more. Make your slingshot come down. For a long tail, you would be coming underneath your thumb and going around and grabbing the strand over your index and pulling it through the thumb space. For an old world German, you're going to come down just the same way. Come around your 2 strands on your thumb, down through your 2 strands on your thumb, and pick up the strand that is right there over your index fingers, but bring it through this little spot here. So I'll do it again. Old world German, around the 2, down through the 2 strands, and grab that little pyramid, come through with this strand, and get it off your thumb. Okay. I may have said in the other video, I chose to do this one because it's more of an elastic, fine, sort of like if you had socks, you might want to do this one. All right, so what we want to make sure of, and what I was talking about before, is if you have a cable that is stiff and already twisting on you, you don't want to knit a Mobius. So first make sure your stitches are all going in the same direction. Like mine are all going to the inside. Got a few tight cast-ons there. I'm going to get my, I am going to cut. Normally I would just tie up the end, but I'm going to cut there because I end up with a Mobius if it's too much in the way. So see how right here this kind of wants to kink right here? I'm going to be working against that. I had thought about it, I would have just put my, wrong way. I would have put my, go this way now. I would have put my cables into a little steam shower. So your working yarn is always going to be, hang on, let me do this again. So see how this wants to do this? Just a little warm water, not too hot, or steam, and it'll loosen up, because sometimes you can have all your stitches going the right way, but the cable is actually twisting your stitches. You'll notice it the first row or two, and you'll think, I got a Mobius going, right? Okay, so we're going to join, and everybody does this different. Some people do an extra stitch, and they do a slip stitch. They do a SKP, they slip stitch. I'm just going to join. Right? Now, everybody does this different too. I don't like to make my join. It'll say place a marker and join. Place a marker at the beginning and join. I don't, this particular kind of marker I've got, and the clippies, I don't like to place them because they get in the way and make more of a kind of a jagged space there. All you're going to do, so now I just put it on later. All you're going to do is knit 2 and give a little tug on the second stitch. Purl 2. That's all you're doing. A 2x2 ribbing. You're knitting 2, you're purling 2. You're going to knit 2, purl 2 all the way around until you get 1.5 inches. So you need a tape measure. You're not going to stretch it out or anything. It's your brim. You're going to use the smaller needle, your US 6, whatever needle you needed to get gauge. And your brim is going to be 1.5 inches of 2x2 ribbing. Knit 2, purl 2, all the way around. So that's really all I'm doing here. And then you have an increase row, and you're going to switch to your bigger needle, like your US 7, or whatever you needed to get gauge. You're going to keep moving your stitches up, and keep moving your stitches over. You need those other place markers are going to come in handy when we decrease. So there's a setup row where you're increasing once you get around your brim done. And then the other thing you're going to need is a dinner plate to black this, because berets get blacked with dinner plates. So you're going to wash it in your favorite little soap or just kind of dunk it in some water. And stretch it out over a dinner plate, and you've got your beret. So the setup, like I said this in the other video, for the sake of repeating myself, the setup increase row, you'll just switch to your the body of the hat with your larger needle, and you'll knit 1, and then you'll knit into the front and the back of the next stitch. And you're going to be increasing from, you'll do that all the way around. And That will give you 120 stitches with a cast on of 80. Your cast on will be 80, but you'll increase to 120 stitches. Then once you have that going, you're just going to knit. Just knit all the way around. And when you're knitting in the round, it's called stockinette stitch. Because when you keep going, it's going to change up on you. it's gonna look really sweet. So you're just going to do your brim till you're at 1.5 inches. And I'm using it's calling for us to use a 5.0, a US 5. No, I'm actually using an 8. I'm using it's calling for us to use a 4mm US 6. I've got a 5mm, so I actually have a US 8 I'm using here. I just took what I have handy, and maybe I'll switch up to a 9 or something. I don't know if I can find a 9. I might just keep going. Well, I want to make sure you can see the difference between the brim and the hat, obviously. It's going to be too big if I keep going with this. It's going to be big to begin with. This is just a sample. So it's going to be big. Because I'm using the wrong needle size. Like all my hats, they're going to be a little too big. Alright. So I have a little gap there. Don't worry about it. So everybody, it'll come together again. So you're just going to keep doing the knit 2. Purl 2. And I'm actually going to get to my 1.5 inches a lot quicker because I am using a bigger needle. So I'm going to do my brim. 2x2 brim. And come back and show you how to do the setup row for the increase and the then you're just going to knit to get to 5.5 inches. And then you're going to do a setup for a decrease row. I could just tell you this. Your decrease to your setup row is going to be, you're going to knit 17 stitches and place a marker. That's where the different colored markers come in. Right? So knit 17 and then place, and then do a knit 17 and then knit into the back and the front of a stitch. Place a marker. Do that 4 more times. And you've begun your decreasing. Or that's your setup row, your increase. I'm sorry. No, I'm talking about the wrong 20 videos later. Do your setup row with the larger needle, knit 1, knit into the front and the back of 1 stitch. You'll have 120 stitches. Then you're going to knit with that same needle till you get to 5.5 inches. Then you're going to do your setup decrease. Your setup decrease is where you're going to use your place markers. You're going to knit 17, and then you're going to do an SKP. You're going to slip a stitch as if to knit. You're going to go into your stitch the same way you would as if you were going to knit, but then you're going to slip it over. So you're going to, with your right needle, go over to your left needle as if you were going to knit, but you would just slip it on over. And leave it there. And knit the next 2 together. And then with your left needle, you're going to come over and pass that slip stitch over the two you knit together. That's the decrease they're doing, and it's a really nice decrease. So I'm going to get to 1.5 inches pretty quick. Maybe not. Maybe not. I think I'm uneven in my stitches because I should be ending on purls. If it's knit 2, purl 2, you should be ending on 2 purls. Somewhere I think I picked up an extra stitch. I didn't count right. Well, for the sake of the pattern, you're just going to cast on. Right? So that's all you're doing. Knitting 2, purling 2. When I get to this, I'm going to go off to the next video, and I'll come back when I have my brim done and do the setup row. Take a water break, stretch break, bathroom break, a nudgy break for my cat. Go see him, give him some love nudges. Justin turned 10 years old on March 21st, and man, he has been a bear. He let me know he's older. He has become a cranky cat. I honestly think with the whole pandemic, he's just a little sick of seeing me too. And it goes, the feeling is mutual. We love each other, but the feeling is mutual. Oh, I can't believe that book is in such good shape. There's also a smell of like perfume on it. I have a bionic nose. That's my superpower. Yeah, that's my superpower. You know, and the other thing I want to talk about is everybody's talking about, whoa, what's Kanye West gonna do next? Yay. He changed his name to Yay. Yay in the Bible means you. So he changed his name to you, meaning I am you, you are me, we are one. Okay? Yeah, I can see what's going on. Oh, I am ending on, I must have done a wrong stitch because I am ending on 2 purls. So I did. But, you know, all the banter that's going on with Kim and Kanye and Pete and the Grammys and everything, I lost all respect for the Grammys the night Whitney Houston died. Do we even have to say her last name? The night Whitney died. And people that stayed there and continued to party, knowing that Whitney was a couple floors up, like 4 floors up, still in a tub so they can keep her body warm for hours, stayed, and then at her funeral, bawled their eyes out, went on about how wonderful she was. How Whitney would have wanted the party to go on? No. Whitney would not have wanted the party to go on. No. Whitney especially would not have wanted a party to go on for a man she made the most money for. No. So, when Shaka Khan said no, when Aretha Franklin said no, Whitney wouldn't have wanted that. I lost respect for them then. So I was reading a post where a good friend of mine was saying that, you know, she was getting sick and tired of all the Kanye news. You know, Kim has a right to a life, move on already. Stop. She was and then it kind of smelled of OJ to her. And I was really shocked by her post. And I wrote back, well, I think we all know Kanye's got issues. His issues have issues. But I also thought it was humiliating what they were doing with the Grammys. And I felt Kim was safe. So I didn't feel OJ worries. But I agree. It was too much. It had all gotten too much. And what happened there? Oh, I see. No, I don't see. Wait a minute. Purl 2, knit 2. Purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Alright, let's see what I did wrong. Anyways, so I wrote, I didn't feel like Kim had anything to worry about. Kanye. It was part of his brand to be, it actually was his brand to be that way. And that the suits expected him to be the way he was being. And it made a ton of money for them, made a ton of money for him. Crazy, right? That's the industry. And she came back and she kind of in a corrective tone. So I always know when she says, when it's corrective with her, because we've known each other a while now, and we've been in those situations where we've agreed to disagree or whatever. And she wrote back, it was mental illness, not issues. Kanye had mental illness. His behavior was unacceptable, and Kim should be able to move on, and though she felt Kim was probably safe too. Well, that led me back to the very stigma of what people with mental health labels or quote-unquote disorders or illness deal with. Is there are a ton of people that just have character flaws, character weaknesses, and they're not mentally ill. Now, Kanye has spoken about his not illness, his mental health on many interviews, including the David Letterman interview way before Kim and him were together. And he said, I need to keep in check my mental health because if I don't, it can get to feeling like the whole world is against me all at once and that people are conspiring against him. Some people have alluded to the fact that he has bipolar because of his cover art on his album, where he wrote, took a famous phrase from a movie, I think it was, I hate you, I love you, bipolar, or whatever. And because Kim said he was bipolar. But actually, he just went into the hospital, had a hospitalization. And he wasn't thrown in the hospital. He went voluntarily on his own accord and got himself some help. And I just think it's so sad that the most significant thing that happened to him is his mother's death, which people just don't die from liposuction and tummy tuck and a breast reduction. And his mother died, and that was a huge loss for him. His mother was his heart, raised him. He went to China with his mother when she was a doctor of English, and he assimilated right into the Chinese culture and learned the language as a child. He just adapted. He had a great love for his mother. And the album he's up for a Grammy for is called Donda, which is named after his mother. And he actually made two. So I don't smell OJ. I smell the industry being really nasty. And I think it's just really wrong to kick a person when they're already down. I think what Kanye has is you can have two things going on at once. Your health, your mental health, can be categorized into a label that maybe you even need medication for. But your actual character, your personality, has nothing to do with that mental health disorder. You could have a character, a personality that is dominant, controlling, conspiratorial thinking without the mental illness. And just you could have a cantankerous, a negative characteristic attribute of your personality. You're a nervous Nelly, you're a worrywart, you're a catastrophic thinker, you're a cranky person, you're a grumpy person, you're a show off, you're arrogant, these are all things, narcissistic, delusional, grandiose, whatever, they are part of people's personality makeup, and they don't make them mentally ill. And I think we need to start separating out what is this person's personality structure, not because of anything that happened to them. This is just what they are. They are like black and white thinkers, or they are like the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. Those are basics that therapists have to work with, along with working with disruptions in personality that come along too. So, say you had a client that was bipolar, and you knew they would have times of high energy, low energy, times of flights of thought, times of great production, times of no production, and feeling like everything was wrong. And their client would spend a lot of money all at once, not be able to figure out what to do, be a mess because of it, then get depressed because of it, or maybe go a long time without eating or whatever. I mean, just all those things that go with the disorder, whatever it is. But then you have to deal with the building blocks of their regular personality, like they're kind of a cranky person. They're kind of literal, or they're kind of philosophical, or whatever, deep thinkers, serious. All of that, or melancholy. That doesn't mean that, so I just right away I thought, man, that is the stigma. That is the stigma. Is once you get that label or diagnosis, never mind your nasty, parts of your personality that are just, and I don't mean parts and pieces and alters and ego states. I mean areas we have to renew our mind and make better all the time. And, not to spiritualize, but I do believe when the Bible talks about us renewing our minds, it's because we have to constantly renew our thinking, and every day, and restore our thinking to a right way. And so I really just believe Kanye, yay, Kanye. I believe it's a horrible humiliation, and we don't know if he is really bipolar. Kim says he's bipolar. One hospitalization doesn't tell you he's bipolar. In fact, he went undiagnosed in his month-long hospitalization. He went undiagnosed, and the only thing that was seen that was written about was that in his record, he laid it all bare, is that he was suicidal and he was also paranoid and anxious. But he also was prescribed opiates for his own his own cosmetic surgery that he had when he met Kim. They have a lot of surgery. He decided to have some. And whatever he had done, I don't know what he had done. I can't imagine what he had done, but whatever he had done, he was prescribed opiates, and he was addicted to them, and nobody tapered him off. So that was something they dealt with when he went into the hospital. So that makes me wonder. See, is where when I think about OJ, I think here's a man who supposedly held a gun to his head next to AC driving down an expressway with AC on the phone with the police and the lawyers saying, "Don't anybody come close. OJ's got a gun to his head. He's gonna kill himself." Okay. But when he got to the police station, when the whole expressway cleared, it always reminds me of Thelma and Louise with the helicopters above, the white Bronco, and the police cars staying a safe space back because OJ was holding a gun to his head. AC was driving like mad. People were on the side of the road holding signs saying, "Run, Jews, run." How'd that happen? Anyways, yeah, like Dick Gregory, I'm always going to wonder about that. But anyways, when the Bronco got to the house, and they took OJ in. Yeah, they put him in a special cell. They watched him for a while to make sure he didn't kill himself. But a psychiatrist, several psychiatrists that examined OJ, he had no mental illness. None. They couldn't find any mental illness with OJ. Nothing. What they could find was a difficult personality. He was controlling, he was dominant, and he wanted what he wanted. So I'm mentioning that because my friend mentioning the mental illness bothered me a lot. I pretty much stayed off social media right then. I was like, I'm just going to go away for a minute or two because I had to think about this. Because that is the stigma of thinking because a person is mentally ill, that they're going to be emoting, that they're going to be unpredictable, that they're going to be outlandish, that they're going to be not correct, that they're going to be all these things that have nothing to do with their mental health, but have to do with their actual personality structure, that just their character. They have a character that needs work. It's their own personal growth. It has nothing to do with an illness. And then it just feeded the whole stigma of if you're mentally ill, you're dangerous. When the truth is, and the statistics bear it out, that most folks with mental illness are victims. And they don't go around hurting other people. They generally hurt themselves if they're going to hurt anyone, or they're victims because they're vulnerable. So, that's my video today. So I'm going to go ahead and keep making this. And I'll come back in the next video. I'm going to upload this one. Right, so there's your little brim starting. You want to get to 1.5 inches. And it's going to be one big beret. I think you get the idea of how to do it, but I'm just kind of showing you the stitches there. Just keep going till you get to 1.5 inches and switch your needle. And I'll try to switch up to a bigger needle. And then have your DP ends ready. and I'll come back and show it to you when it's done. All right, thanks for hanging in with me at this video. I didn't know my package was going to come and I was going to end up talking about In Pieces, Sally Field, or Kanye. What's even sadder is they're going to have him sit at the back of the church, like sit in the corner. Like you can come to the Grammys, you can walk the red carpet, but baby's going to sit in the corner. You're not going to perform your #1 album of the year, up for #1 artist album, named after your mother. You're not going to perform. It's like they're almost sticking little daggers in him, saying, let's see what Kanye will do, because it'll make them a bunch of money. Which is sad. Alright, I'm going to go on knitting, and I'll upload this. If you watch this, God bless you. It's a long video. But actually, I watched a video last night of a gal crocheting a hat, and that went on almost 2 hours. Well, never know. Have a really awesome day. I'll see you back in the next video after I upload this one, and we'll get on to making the body of the hat. And those will be shorter because I'm just going to click off when I get to the, like knit until you knit for 1.5 inches for the brim, or knit for 5.5 inches. Well, this is the brim, or knit the body of the hat till you get to 5.5 inches. I'll just come back and do the setup rows with you. Okay. All right. Be right back.